In 2011, a cardiac researcher named Dr. Niels Groudel published findings that stopped the medical world cold. He analyzed 167 randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of science, and found something that contradicted everything your doctor had been telling you for decades. People who ate low sodium died at higher rates than people who ate moderate sodium, not slightly higher. Statistically, meaningfully higher. His study landed in the American Journal of Hypertension and was largely ignored. Why? Because it threatened a 50-year-old narrative that the entire food industry and medical establishment had built their recommendations on. Everything you know about salt is wrong. The war on sodium may have actually made you sicker, not healthier. And today, you're going to find out exactly how that happened, who benefited from keeping you confused, and what the actual science says you should be doing instead. Stay with me, because what comes next will change how you look at every meal you eat. Here is what most doctors will never sit down and explain to you. The recommended daily sodium intake in the United States is 2,300 milligrams per day. For people with hypertension, the American Heart Association pushes that down to 1,500 milligrams. Sounds protective, right? Sounds like they're looking out for you. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The average human kidney is designed to handle between 3,000 and 5,000 milligrams of sodium per day. That is not a fringe claim. That is basic renal physiology. When you drop below your body's functional threshold, your kidneys trigger a cascade response involving a hormone system called the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. And that system, when chronically activated, is directly linked to cardiovascular stress, insulin resistance, and elevated LDL cholesterol. Let that sink in. The thing doctors warned you about, heart disease, may actually be worsened by following the very advice they gave you about salt. The evidence has been sitting in peer-reviewed journals for over a decade. You just were never told about it. Let's get specific about what actually happens inside your body when sodium drops too low. Your kidneys monitor blood sodium constantly, minute by minute. When levels fall, your adrenal glands release aldosterone. Aldosterone tells your kidneys to hold on to sodium at all costs. At the same time, your body releases renin, an enzyme. The research trail here is damning once you start following it. In 1972, the National High Blood Pressure Education Program launched the Low Sodium Campaign. It was based primarily on a study called the InterSalt study, a correlational analysis of 52 populations worldwide. But here is what they conveniently left out of the public messaging. When researchers removed two outlier populations, isolated indigenous tribes with almost zero processed food consumption, the entire correlation between sodium and blood pressure essentially disappeared. Two populations. That is what 50 years of nutritional policy was built on. Fast forward to 2014. A landmark analysis published in the New England Journal of Medicine by researchers, including Dr. Dariush Mozaffarian, found that the optimal sodium intake for minimizing cardiovascular risk sits between 3,000 and 6,000 milligrams per day. That is more than double the official recommendation. The researchers explicitly stated that both very low and very high intake increased mortality risk, a J-curve relationship. Not a straight line, a curve. The guidelines never told you about the curve. And the question you have to ask yourself is, why not? So why does your doctor still tell you to cut the salt? There are a few uncomfortable answers to that question. First, medical education moves slowly. A physician trained in 1995 learned the 2,300 milligram rule as gospel. Updating clinical guidelines requires institutional consensus, funding, and political will, none of which move quickly. Second, and this is the part that should genuinely disturb you, the low-sodium narrative has been extraordinarily profitable for the pharmaceutical industry. If your low-sodium diet chronically activates your renin-angiotensin system and raises your blood pressure, you are more likely to be prescribed an ACE inhibitor or a beta blocker. Those drugs, coincidentally, work by suppressing the exact same hormonal cascade that low sodium triggers. You were handed a problem and then sold the solution. The processed food industry also benefits. Low-sodium processed foods command premium prices on grocery shelves. They replaced sodium with sugar and chemical flavor enhancers to mask the taste. You paid more, ate worse, and felt confused about why your health was not improving. The betrayal here is not accidental. It is structural. And you have been living inside it every single day. So what do you actually do with this information? Because knowing the system is broken does not tell you what to put on your eggs in the morning. Here is a practical framework based on the current peer-reviewed evidence. Number 1. Source matters more than quantity. Sodium from whole food sources like quality sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, or naturally occurring sodium in vegetables behaves differently in your body than sodium in ultra-processed foods, which comes paired with seed oils, refined sugars, and chemical preservatives. If you are rethinking your sodium intake, tracking your actual intake with precision matters. A quality kitchen scale, not measuring cups, not guesses, is the single most important tool you can add to your kitchen right now. I will link the one I personally recommend in the description below. It measures to the 10th of a gram and has genuinely changed how I think about my meals. Number 2. Pair sodium with potassium. The ratio of sodium to potassium is more predictive of cardiovascular outcomes than sodium alone. Eat potassium-rich whole foods: avocados, sweet potatoes, salmon, spinach. Number 3. If you are active, you need more sodium than a sedentary person. Sweat depletes electrolytes rapidly. I have also linked an electrolyte-focused nutrition book in the description that breaks down the science without making your head spin. It is one of the clearest deep dives into this topic I have read. Eat real food. Season it properly. Trust your body's signals. Let's close the loop we opened at the beginning. Dr. Groudle published his 167 trial analysis in 2011. He found that low-sodium diets increased all-cause mortality. He published it in a respected journal, and the official guidelines did not change. Not in 2011, not in 2014 when Mozaffarian's NEJM paper confirmed the J-curve, not in 2020. The narrative was too embedded, too profitable, too politically entrenched to shift, even when the data demanded it. You were not kept ignorant by accident. You were kept confused on purpose. Because a confused consumer is a controllable consumer. But here is what they did not count on. You watching a video like this, you asking questions, you going back to the primary literature and refusing to accept a pamphlet as a substitute for science. Salt is not your enemy. Processed food is. Inflammatory seed oils are. Refined sugar is. Chronic stress is. The war on sodium was a distraction, and the evidence has been quietly screaming that for over a decade. Now you know. And knowing puts you ahead of almost everyone sitting at your table tonight. If this video shifted something for you, if it made you question even one thing you thought you knew about nutrition, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it tells the algorithm that this kind of honest, evidence-based content deserves to reach more people who are being failed by the same broken advice. Subscribe if you want more videos that go this deep into the science without the fluff and without the agenda. Every week we pull apart a nutrition myth that the food industry profits from you believing. Check the description for the kitchen scale and the electrolyte nutrition book I mentioned. Both are tools I genuinely use, and both will make a real difference if you are serious about dialing in your health. And if you have a friend or a family member who has been terrified of salt their whole life, share this video with them. They deserve to know. Disclaimer: this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing constitutes professional advice of any kind.